After 2 non-serious videos, we are diving into a pretty deep topic by DBD standards: killer anxiety. It's not a new term, I'm not the first person to talk about it, but that's because it is so prevalent among killer players in DBD. The stress that you feel at the thought of playing killer, the hesitation to ready up at all, these are indicators that it's difficult for you to even begin a match of killer because of, well, anxiety is a term that's thrown around a lot in today's world, but it's described as excessive anxiety and worry, along with a difficulty controlling that worry, characterized by symptoms like restlessness, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension, and irritability. Now, anyone can look at the definition of generalized anxiety in the DSM-5. So I'm going to tell you about my experiences with anxiety and how it relates to the main topic of this video. My anxiety manifests in catastrophizing, assuming the most irrational, impossible, worst-case scenario, and then drowning in what-ifs. I could name 50 examples of this, but I'll just name one so you get the idea. I decided to send an email to a large YouTuber recently to ask for advice when it came to writing content in his style. I hesitated to send this email because I thought that by merely asking to make a parody of his video, he might sue me or hate me. When there is conflict or a problem or any sort of tension, I assume the worst possible outcome, and the stress just builds upon itself until I become paralyzed with fear, and instead of doing anything productive or solving anything, I just doom scroll or watch Slimesicle videos. So as a killer, in Dead by Daylight, what's the worst case scenario? What is the catastrophe that I'm planning for? What a big, scary word. It means to reduce someone to a lower position in one's own eyes or others' eyes. It comes with feelings of embarrassment and shame. A killer starts out in a position of power. They're the threat, the big bad, the final boss of the trial. So naturally, we react strongly when survivors are so obviously not afraid, dancing around you because they know they have nothing to fear, because there's nothing you can do to stop them. That's the sort of thinking and spiraling that we can get stuck in during a bad game. Survivors that play well or aggressively are not cursing your name, though you might assume the worst because of the popularity of some of my least favorite DBD content in the YouTube space. Content that mocks newer killers, and content about toxic streamers. There is a non-zero chance that if you play poorly enough, and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, then your gameplay will be shown publicly for a bunch of people on TikTok or YouTube to point at and laugh. This is a catastrophe. This is the worst possible scenario. That paired with the seemingly endless amount of videos about toxic TTVs that are more often than not survivors, it means that the DBD player base, a lot of the killers, are being shown that mistakes are not treated as mistakes, but as spectacles, and that survivor players are heartless and toxic by nature. That is the rule, not the exception. But this is an incorrect assumption, fueled by the fact that the YouTube algorithm pushes negative, repetitive content way more than positive content. So much of these videos is what causes arguments that fuel the tribalism in this game, the killers versus survivors. That's not what this game is. The majority of DBD players play both sides. The majority of DBD players are literally just playing this game as an escape from the real world and to have fun with friends. It's so easy to lose that when you're lost in these cesspools of negativity and toxicity, so crushed by the weight of it. The expectation of the killer being able to be scary and be in control, being pitted against an unpredictable survivor team whose capabilities are unknown, ranging from casual solo queue gamers to a swift playing competitively, and everything in between. These don't mix well, so anxious killers tend to assume the worst when mentally preparing for their next games. I've often seen people make snap judgments about the survivor team they're about to face, saying they're a swift, a bully squad, definitively. Meanwhile, in my personal experience, I don't see any way to know that for sure. This is unfortunately fueled by the echo chambers located within the DBD community, where anxious killers share their stories and reinforce the fears of other killers. There are content creators that feed upon this fear by creating videos about obliterating a group of allegedly toxic survivors, and these anxious killers consume and internalize this content, leading to the spread of terms like bully squads and second chance perks as a way to cope with loss, taking out their anxiety and frustrations on the survivors, since shifting the blame is easier than dealing with the overwhelming amount of the constraint of circumstance. In any competitive game, there is pressure on everyone to perform well, but it is very easy to get overwhelmed by the amount of things a killer is carrying on their shoulders. You need to protect 5 gens, hook survivors 3 times each, hopefully get value out of your perks unless they're completely countered by RNG or the survivor team. And also, you're running out of time, and every long chase, every stun, every time you lose a survivor, you're reminded in that quiet that you are wasting time. When you lay it out like that, it might make someone never want to play killer again, huh? But that's the game working against you. So let's talk about you working against you. I asked my community to tell me about their experiences with killer anxiety, and there was a common theme to a lot of the responses I got. First of all, I want to hug you all and tell you that it's going to be okay. Secondly, there seems to be a notable fear of messing up, of not being good enough, of being so close to winning and failing due to your own shortcomings. I've seen this a lot coming from people whose killer main is wrapped up into their identity. I'm a twins main. It's what my channel is entirely themed around. I have all their cosmetics, I've prestiged them up to P100. So it feels embarrassing to lose as twins, or to miss a pounce with Victor. When you're known as that guy that plays that killer, there's an added layer of pressure to be good at that character. I want to be the person my friends go to when they have questions about the twins. I want survivors to be scared of how good I am as twins. So when I fail, who is at fault? Alright, we're getting a bit real, and script writing Sage is getting stressed out, so I'm going to tell you about a fun interaction I had recently as a buffer. I was playing Dracula, and I had the add-on where there were fire pillars that spawned in the exit gate, and I had befriended this feng, and where most survivors would see this exit gate as a threat, she saw a challenge. She wanted to get through the exit gate without getting hit by any of the pillars. She started by running, and then walking, and then the final challenge, she wanted to crouch her way to victory. It took her a couple of tries, but she was persistent, and I was so proud of her when she actually did it. She looked so fucking cool. Okay, back to who is there to blame for the game that you just lost? Who is responsible for this terrible feeling that you're experiencing? Well, the answers that are easiest to see are the survivors and the balancing of the game as a whole. The survivor perks were too strong. They were a swift, so they had an advantage with communication. They were trying to make you miserable and get in your head. Or the killer you're playing is weak, or was nerfed, or the perks you usually run were nerfed. These are digestible reasons for failure, and I wouldn't have a problem with them if they didn't push so much anger and bitterness out into the community. Call me an optimist, but I choose to believe that the survivor teams that I face do not take joy in making me miserable. That my loss can be seen as being beaten by a team that was better than me, and thus it wouldn't make sense if I won. Winning would mean that I'd likely go against more teams that are factually more skilled than I am at this game. And as for the second reason, I'm going to use some tough love here. You cannot choose to play a killer that struggles in a competitive setting and then get mad at that killer for struggling in a competitive setting. Killer mains that play Myers, Ghostface, Trapper need to have lower expectations than those who play Nurse or Artist. There is a power disparity between killer powers. A Blight will, on average, win more than a Stealth killer. That doesn't mean your killer can't be a threat. That doesn't mean you can't win. So we've talked about all of these big topics. Let's put them together. I'm going to tell you about my experience with killer anxiety. When I was a newer player, I didn't play killer for the first 100 hours of playtime. I was terrified of the pressure that killers were under, and I didn't want to be humiliated. It only took facing my fears and actually going through with learning killer to, at the very least, lessen the killer anxiety that was plaguing me. Now that I've been playing for 4 years, with thousands of hours, those feelings of stress and self-doubt aren't gone, but I've learned better ways to deal with them. Unfortunately, I say that, but literally yesterday, from when I'm writing this, I let my ego get the best of me, and after losing a Trapper game, I switched to a strong twins build and took my anger out on the next team. This was a bad idea. I didn't get any pleasure out of ruining the trial experience for these survivors and going for a snowball so early in the game. I felt hollow. I felt embarrassed that with all of the messages of kindness and whimsy in my videos, I was still doing the wrong thing. But that's the unfortunate part about killer anxiety. There isn't a clear path to overcome it. You can acknowledge it, you can deal with it, and it will get easier to handle. But you'll still have bad games, and you'll still have that hesitation the next day where you wonder, is it worth it to play at all? And to answer, I think it is. I love this game. I know why I love this game. I think the negative feelings are always outweighed by the sheer amount of joy that this game gives me. I love survivor and killer players alike. I love the human moments and the close games. And I've gotten a lot better at knowing when the stress is getting to be too much and I need to go do something else. Anxiety is not a product of my environment, it's a product of my brain. Everything could go your way in a killer trial and you still might be plagued by what-ifs for the next one. We all have our own reasons for this stress, be it a need to win, a fear of failure, competitiveness. I know that my games are made better by treating survivors as human beings, by being open to friendly interactions and going easier on them when they're struggling. I like playing empathetically. If your reaction to me expressing empathy for survivors is to tell me about all the survivors that have wronged you, then you're missing the point. If you can find nothing you like about facing your opponents, if you can't think of a single interaction with another person that you enjoyed, then you should not be playing this game. There needs to be something that you enjoy that brings you back beyond bathing in the blood of your enemies. And this game functionally could not exist without killers and survivors alike. There does not need to be so much animosity between them. Before we move on to the conclusion, I'd like to thank my wonderful Ko-Fi supporters for giving me money to commission Twins art. And thank you to the artists that breathe so much life into my videos. My channel would not be where it is without you guys. Back to the video. I know this video was a lot less silly compared to my recent work. I hope to leave you with a positive message and some tools to work through these feelings. The world is divided and scary, and there are a lot of things that can cause stress and weigh heavily on you. But it's a miracle that Dead by Daylight exists at all, that we're all connected by our love of horror, that we can meet so many different people from all over, and we've created this way of communicating and expressing ourselves that is so unique to this game. I will forget this bad Trapper game, probably within the month. But I won't forget how many friendships I've cultivated, how many times I've laughed and smiled, how many wonderful games I've had. You are so much more than your fears, and you will survive this catastrophe. Hold on to the things you love about this game. Hold on to the people that make you feel safe and heard. And remember that having bad games does not take away from the amount of good there is in the game and community.